Hi, I'm Tony Barnes, and I am the developer of BPM Boy. I've been making games for 40 years now, and I can do 2D art, 3D art, code, music, all that fun stuff. But generally, in AAA, I've been a designer on many platforms and many games, like the Strike series, Legacy of Kain, Medal of Honor, Madden Football, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Strider. Anyway, so.
Tony, you're here showing off BPM Boy. Talk about what this game is all about. You threw out the name Marble Madness, which is a name I haven't heard in a long time.
Oh yeah, so this is an homage to Marble Madness, which was one of my mother's favorite games and is also my wife's favorite game. So I figured at some point I should probably do something that they would like. Sometime last year, my mother passed away, and I said, okay, well, I guess the time makes sense now to pay homage to her. So I just kind of sat down, and then 8 months later, this was created. It's a bit more than Marble Madness, but that's kind of the way game development goes. You start off with a kernel of idea, and then it blossoms, and you go where it takes you.
Physics is a big deal in this game. Talk about some of the challenges when making the physics feel just right and feel good.
Well, for every game that I make, the first thing that I do, and I sit there and refine over and over again, is the player. How the player feels moving, interacting with things, and so this is a physics-driven platformer, so it's very important to get that to feel right and be what I call simple, hot, and deep. And so it's simple to get into. You move the stick and it moves where you want, and it's got heat, it's got juice. You do something and it looks really cool and it's visceral. But it's also got depth because it's physics-driven. There's a lot of things you could do that like a normal platformer wouldn't do because it's usually constrained in some way that physics isn't. And like you can, speedrunners love this game because they can do things like they can do basically wall runs, which aren't technically built into the game, but I know how to do it. Other people know how to do it. So what I'll do is, again, like I said, I work on the player, forever. Sorry, and I react and respond to what I can do, what other players do, and just keep refining it and refining it.
So I know it's kind of loud in here, but it's BPM, beats per minute. Talk about the music in your game.
So there's like over 2 hours of music that I did for this, and actually it's what I call the DMSR, which is a dynamic music system that I wrote, and it actually is reading kind of what you're doing, the speed you're moving at, what you're interacting with, and it starts to actually adjust the music on the fly. It also, there is everything in the world kind of works off of the beats per minute of the song. So like hazards and things will be dancing in front of you, things in the world will just be like popping and bopping based upon the beats per minute. And the music is very, like, I started RetroNinja, and part of the reason it's called RetroNinja is because I'm, an old school game maker.
G1.
Right. And I really like, people really like nostalgia mining. Yeah. They make these games that are nostalgic and retro, but often they don't actually have the DNA. They don't feel like an old game. So I start from making sure that I feel like that old game, and that then you still have a modern kind of look to it. And in the case of this music, it's also like that. It's very like kind of 90s house jazz fusion with a little bit of drum and bass in there. And so it kind of takes you back, but it's modern. It still sounds like something that could be contemporary EDM.
What are some of the challenges you faced as a POC in game development in general that you've had to overcome, if any, and if you're comfortable talking about it?
Well, over 40 years, you end up, like when I started, it was very different. There wasn't an internet and all that. I mean, there was, but there wasn't. So some of the challenges were different. Like I literally had a phone interview, and everything was all kosher and everything. And then I was brought into the office, and the guy said, "You don't look the way you sound." And then all of a sudden, the interview was over. And I basically had a verbal over the phone. Otherwise, I wouldn't even gotten on the plane. to go to see it. That kind of stuff happens every once in a while. But I feel like any sort of friction in my way, any challenge, like the people that don't make it are the ones that let that friction get in their way. If you're going to put up a roadblock, I'm going to smash through it. If you're going to try and weigh me down with something, then I'm going to use it to stand on to get to the next run. It's as simple as that. You can't stop me. So that's kind of the way I approach it whenever anything happens.
What advice would you give out there to future POCs that want to get into game development?
Do it. What should future POCs do? They should just do it. There's no better time. You have all of the tools, and if somebody doesn't want to put you on, just do it yourself. You want to drive a car, then make the car. You can build your own car now. Back when I started, no, you couldn't. But you have the best resources now. So don't let anyone stop you.
And when does your game come out, and what platforms will you be aiming for at launch?
So BPM Boy is already out on the Atari VCS, and it's been out for a few months, which is why I know the speedrunning community loves it and all that. I utilized all the data that I gathered from that, and that's all going into the ports and enhancements for other platforms, which are Steam, Steam Deck, Xbox, and Switch. And so they'll be rolling out, this year, kind of, rolling cadence, not all at once, because I'm a solo dev. I, developed all of it, so it does take some time.
And where can people go to find out more information about you and your development? Do you have a Discord, Facebook, website?
You can find out about RetroNinja at RetroNinja.com. I'm everywhere under RetroNinja or Tony Barnes, but really RetroNinja.com. And, reach out. I'm open. I'll talk to people unless you're an asshat. So it's all good.